with Legion 89. So in my filing system, we ignore punctuation and all this. The issue 300, celebrating the fact. Hi, I'm Glenn Simpson, and I've collected comics for over 40 years, and I'm showing off my collection one box at a time. Today, we're looking at box number 98. As we make our way through the collection, we are looking at all things Legion, mostly Legion of Superheroes, a couple other Legion-oriented books as well. So it's going to be a good time. I'm glad you're here. Let's get going here on Glenn Simpson's Comics. Alright, we're going to start with Legion 89. So in my filing system, we ignore punctuation and all that stuff. So this is sort of just Legion. And because this series, the number changed every year, I'm just ignoring that. So this is effectively just, the title of this book is just called Legion. And there's nothing after that. And it's the first series just called Legion. In the Invasion series, we met Vril Dox, who is effectively Brainiac 2. If the original Brainiac is Brainiac, and then in the future Legion, we have Brainiac 5, so he's Brainiac 2, and it's a little confusing, like, is Brainiac 1 an android, or is he a biological, or how does all that work? And that tends to change over time, whether he is an adopted son or a clone or whatever. But at any rate, he is living here in the now, if you will, and he is captured during the invasion by the aliens that were invading Earth, and he decides to, when he gets out with his cellmates, if you will, to start an interstellar police force to kind of, keep the sort of thing that happened to him and them from ever happening again, and that sort of thing. So it's him and a Durlin and a precursor to Blok and one of Shadow Lass's ancestors and some other folks that will turn up here and there, and they form this interstellar police force. And the problem is, in the grand scheme of things, he turns into a bit of a jerk and an authoritarian and that kind of thing, and has shades of his father that they have to deal with. But issue 1, this is of course written by Keith Giffen, Alan Grant, Barry Kitson on art. Issue 1. Things get taken up a notch when Lobo joins, and this is where we get a lot of, Lobo had shown up in that Omega Man issue, and then I believe this is his second, over here, somewhere in here is his second appearance, and this which would be the first appearance with the leathers and that kind of thing. And if I didn't mention it before, one of the members is a Durlin, who would also be a sort of, not necessarily ancestor, but an early, from the same race as Chameleon Boy. Let's see, that's 1 through 4. Issue 5. He's got the leathers, but he's still not, full-on chains that we think of with Lobo through 8. There. 9. So a person who resembles Phantom Girl appears. We don't know who she is. She doesn't remember who she is. She joins, giving it a bit more flavor of the Legion. And then this guy who's kind of always been a bit of a of a loser. He gets attached to the Emerald Eye. The Legion has their Emerald Empress, where this eye thing that she can use to zap things and whatnot he gets attached to it, and he may not have complete control over it. As evidenced by Lobo getting dragged around by it. Get you, sorry. There we go. She lined up with my dots. Issue 20. There, of course, like I said, every year the title would change to match up, but we're just kind of ignoring that, organizationally speaking. Issue 21. Garen Beck, that's his name. He and his wife, his ex-wife, or his estranged wife, both become kind of co-owners of the Eye, and it starts taking them over as well. 24. Now we're getting into some real Lobo here. You can see the gradual movement. Got Alan Grant taking over as writer. Issue 25. Of course, they've had some Kevin Maguire artwork in a few spots. I forget her name. I'm drawing a blank now as to her name. Issue 28. But she mates, if you will. She has kind of a Pomfar kind of situation where she loses control of herself and mates with Vril Dox, and then they have a child, and she kind of has to go off to a planet to give birth on her own. Issue 29, they bring in the classic DC character Captain Comet as a member. Issue 36. It's fighting Spider Icky. There's a interstellar race in DC called the Spider Guild. I'm sure that's what that is. It's more of a Omega Men kind of thing. Issue 37. Garen Beck having some problems there. Issue 44. Captain Comet having some troubles there. Issue 45. Trying to evacuate a planet. 52. Mark Waid has come on. And dealing with their Shadow Tasmia. I can't remember her last name. Most of this I'm saying out loud for the first time right here. Issue 53. Kind of got this nice storyline of some new recruits. One of them is a Kund, one of those sort of or Klingon-ish aliens at DC, and he becomes good friends with his robotic pal, co-member of Legion. Issue 53 there. Issue 60. The Phantom Girl thing, she's been going by the name Phase. Issue 61. That's very kind of plop-esque cover there. 66. So this was kind of funny. So I can't remember this guy's name, but you had these two members of Legion who were both very distinctive looking aliens. And they're the only, they both end up on this planet where they're the only members of their race on the planet. And then they both end up moonlighting as like masked Avengers at night, and they don't recognize each other, even though they are the only members of their race, because masks work at DC. That's the point. Any story where the mask doesn't work is wrong. Masks work. Issue 66 there. Issue 67. Lady Quark joins at some point. She is a character from Crisis on Infinite Earths who survives the crisis. She has her I think in the post-crisis sort of universe, it's, she was originally from a parallel Earth, and then I think in the post-crisis, she just remembers her planet, being destroyed. But, the fact that it was, she doesn't remember it being a parallel Earth. And then we get to 0 Hour and the end of Legion. And this will turn into Rebels. Still RE, with the dots and everything. I don't remember what any of these stand for. And that's where the 0 issue will be. And the series will continue from there. They have some annuals. They would have whatever the theme annual was they were having this month. They would be involved. Got this one that's actually a part of the storylines, and you've got the post-crisis, immediate post-crisis version of Brainiac, and so father versus son thing there. And then by issue 5, we've got the Elseworlds, and so it's all just the characters in different kinds of settings, and this time it was as if it was all a James Bond movie. Here's the funny thing: so you've got the girls in the bikinis, right? So the Blok precursor here, who they shed their skin at some point, so she went from granity to shiny, but also it's a she. she's female, and so she's a girl, and so she gets to be down here with the rest of the girls. That's how that works. Sorry, I paused to grab more books and out of the box, and things shift around and I have to fix it and all that good stuff. So the next series is the Legion, which is the Legion of superheroes, but in this particular iteration, they decided to just call it the Legion. And I am not going to do a very good job of spelling out the whole continuity, but generally speaking, you had the Superboy and the Legion, old school, that rolled along. They hit Crisis. They got to the other side of Crisis. They were still around, but they forgot about, they didn't have Superboy as a member. There was an older, those characters kind of grew up. They discovered a bunch of clones of themselves, kind of time clones. So then you had these older versions and newer versions. younger versions, and then the younger versions, changed up all their names and their costumes, and so then they were both coexisting. Then 0 Hour happens, and they just start over, and the ones that we start over with really resemble the clones. They're all young. It's a little bit weird. There's a lot of, well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But and then I believe that all goes on in Legionnaires and Legion of Superheroes, and then eventually those 2 books get canceled, and they shift over to just the Legion right here. So I'll repeat all that a couple of times in this video, but this is issue 1. I do not have every issue of this. I was not reading this at the time. Issue 4. I don't think I do. Maybe I do. Issue 5. There. Through issue 8. They fight Ra's al Ghul, who, his whole thing is about not dying, so he can still be around. Issue 9. Right there. Did I say 9 before? This is 9. Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, who would go on to do Guardians of the Galaxy. Issue 12. An actual appearance of the JLA, so that gives you a framework of what time frame we were in. Also the 9/11 remembrance. So around 2002. Issue 13. Oops, sorry. How long has that been like that? Real quick. That. That. Issue 16. Issue 17. Some more Ra's al Ghul. 20. Saturn Girl there. And I jumped to 31, so I have the rest of them on my list. And Connor Kent, the clone Superboy, has ventured to the future and is hanging out with the Legion. Got him a Legion belt, so we kind of get that reflection of Superboy and the Legion. Issue 31 through 34. Issue 35. And I believe it ends with issue 38. Kevin Nolan cover art right there. Now, while that was going on, I think at the same time as that series, we had Legion Lost, and I only have one issue. Yeah, this is 01, so yeah. I only have one issue of this one. I need to, and it's Abnett and Lanning. I have the rest of them on my list. So, but before we can get to any other Legion of Superheroes, we have another Legion Lost, alphabetically speaking. This is Legion Lost 0, so this is part of the New 52. And really, from the get-go, in the New 52, we had a set of Legionnaires who were stuck in the present and not able to get back to the future. So the actual formal start to that series, issue 1. Several of the team coming back. They've clearly had some changes and some evolution, because this one is this is Chameleon Girl, who I believe is the Durlan who had married Colossal Boy. We've got this Invisible Boy back. No, that's not Invisible Boy. Tyrock, sound-based character, alongside of Gates and Timberwolf, Dawnstar, Wildfire. Oh shoot, forget his name. Anyway, they're lost in the 21st century. Issue 1, Fabian Nicienza, Pete Woods. By issue 8, it's being written by Tom DeFalco, and it's crossing over with the Superboy book and a book called Ravagers, which is about some young superheroes who had been sort of captured by a entity called Harvest, who was keeping them captive, and they break free, and so these groups kind of cross over with each other. You may remember the Ravagers for having a red Beast Boy. Issue 9, there's Harvest. There's New 52 Superboy. 9. And then by 16, it's over. Right, so as I mentioned, you had the clones who were you had the clones of the Legion, who were the young and throwbacks to the original characters, and then you had the older versions, and they were all kind of coexisting. And then 0 Hour happens, and just that whole future just gets wiped out, and we have a new future where those are the only version. You know, it's just the young kids again, forming the Legion all over again. And so, in terms of the 0 issue, that's what we've got there. Which that came out in 94. But prior to that, in 93, this would be the versions that are the clones, kind of making their way, protecting the Earth while the older heroes are off doing other things. So, and there's a Legion of Superheroes series coming out at the same time as this one, so it gets a little confusing. I'm probably not even telling it right, but anyway, Legionnaires 1 through 4, Tom and Mary Bierbaum, Chris Sprouse. Issue 5. Things did get a little weird, because sometimes the clones would meet classic Legion villains, and the Legion villains would not, seem to notice that that they were fighting people that they should have recognized. Issue 5 through issue 12. Now the downside is the point where this transitions might be inside a pack. Look at the year again. We're in 94 now. Oh, I think I see it coming. All right. Issue 13. These are still the... And the people who are big fans of the Legion have like names for all these versions. And I'm not up on it. 3 boot and things like that. Issue 13 through 16. This is Adam Hughes. No, I'm so sorry. This is Carl's story. But we're going to have some Adam Hughes coming up for those big Adam Hughes fans. All right, here we go. So, End of an Era is the kind of the point where that continuity is ending. That's how I remember it. That's issue 17. So by the time we get to issue 24, we are now in this is the only Legion there's ever been kind of situation. Tom Payer, Philip Moy, if I remember correctly. 24 there. Issue 25. Through issue 32. So, Underworld Unleashed was the big crossover going on at the time in a lot of the books, and somehow they managed to tie this book that was in a completely different time frame into that. 32. .33. So we've got that Emerald Eye showing up again. There, it's a heck of a drug. Oh, and during this time, so you may be familiar with the Superman triangles. So where there was a different Superman book coming out every week. So the triangles would help you remember what order to read them in. Well, there were the 2 different Legion books. There was Legionnaires and there was Legion of Superheroes. So they did the same thing over here. So at the beginning of the year, the numbers would start over at 1, and you would know which order to read the books in. 33 through issue 40. Shrinking Violet, getting a hold of that Emerald Eye. 41. Yeah. Roger Stern, classic Marvel writer, doing some writing. 48. Fighting the Mordru, the classic Legion of Superheroes villain. 49. .52. Shrinking Violet. So she comes from a race that can shrink, but then she gains the ability to grow. So she becomes Leviathan. .53. You gain a new member named Monstrous, who I understand, there's an Image book called Monstrous now, so I guess they didn't trademark that. Issue 60. Got Karate Kid and Computo on the front. '61. Kind of a little bit of merging of the old school, the new school. '68. '69, dude. '75. Tom Payer still comes back. Chris Sprouse on art. Oops, sorry. '76. And '81 is the final issue of Legionnaires. Of course, during that time, they had a 1 million issue, as most of the series did, showing what the team or heroes would be like in the 853rd century. Some annuals. So the Elseworlds annual depicts the characters in a different setting. And the Legend of the Dead Earth annual usually depict, it's a point where it is so far in the future that, nobody even remembers the Earth, and then something happens that's, causes a character to take on the appearance or the costume or whatever of a regular hero. But given the nature of Legion, I think this was an actual regular story. We have XS, who is the granddaughter of Barry Allen, and she appeared in the CW Flash show. There you go. She is a Legion member. All right. So, alphabetically speaking, the next thing is Legionnaires 3, which is actually an older series. This came out during the around, so 86. So, and it is a solo adventure of the original 3 Legionnaires fighting the old Time Trapper, their classic enemy. Issue 1 through issue 4 of that. I just realized that one of my lamps wasn't on. Sorry about that. Hopefully that wasn't all too dark. So then next we have Legion of Monsters number 4. So I recently picked this up. I've been focusing on things that were a little pricier, but that means sometimes just getting a random issue. And I don't know why this is pricier, but it is an appearance of Morbius and Bloodstone, Werewolf by Night, in a team book setting there. Prior to that, we had a Legion of Monsters set of one-shots. Man-Thing, Satana, Werewolf by Night, and don't remember the other one. The Satana one is notable because all of these have Greg Land covers, and the Satana cover is clearly based on a photo of Pamela Anderson, and to the point that that's when people began to realize what Greg Land was kind of doing. He was, light boxing or whatever. Anyway, issue 1 of that Man Thing and the Werewolf by Night. Morbius was the other one that's inside there. All right. And we have Legion of Night, written by Steve Gerber, classic Marvel writer. I kind of got this. I kind of thought it was something like the previous, some sort of Marvel supernatural character book, but it's actually just sort of an original story, somewhat. Fin Fang Foom is mentioned. Legion of Night 2. Alright. So, technically, alphabetically, Legion of Substitute Heroes comes before Legion of Superheroes. So, we have this one shot. So, the Legion of Substitute Heroes were made up of people, people who had tried out for the Legion of Superheroes and had not made it. And sometimes their powers were kind of goofy. Sometimes they were useless. Sometimes they just didn't have enough control over them. But when that would happen, sometimes they would get invited to join the Legion of Substitute Heroes. This one shot is written by Keith Giffen, and it's the first time that they are, even though they were kind of goofy, that they're really treated in an entirely humor book. And so we've got Fire Lad and Infectious Lass and Porcupine Pete and Chlorophyll Kid, Stone Boy, Polar Boy, and Color Kid. That's right, I knew them all. And it was some fun stuff. And that leads us to the actual Legion of Superheroes. So you'll notice it starts at 259. So once upon a time, DC decides to create a book called Superboy. That is the adventures of Superman when he was a boy in Smallville. And that series runs. And then somebody has the idea, hey, let's do a story about some superheroes from the far future who come back and visit Superboy and have him join as a member. And so he joins the team, and so he would periodically travel through time to what was at the time the 30th century and have adventures with the Legion of Superheroes. And there was some timey-wimey hypnotic stuff about how he wouldn't learn anything in the future that he didn't need to know about his own future or the future of history. But this went on for quite a while, and gradually we began getting stories of just the Legion. You would have a Superboy story, and then you would have a Legion story. And so the eventually just kind of took over the book with the numbering at 259. For a while there, the book's name was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. And so at 259, it becomes officially just Legion of Superheroes. And and he leaves because some of that whole mechanism of him not knowing his future gets thrown off, and so he would go on, and right about this time they would start the New Adventures of Superboy series. So he would still, you'd still get your Superboy fix, but the Legion would go on, and the Legion would this iteration of the Legion would go on to become one of DC's bestsellers. It would eventually kind of get into that Marvel formula because of romance and interpersonal yang going on that made it more interesting than just all the heroes just kind of getting along all the time. And very well written stuff by Paul Levitz and others. So here we go. First issue, Legion of Superheroes 259. We've got issue 262 there. And we've got 263. Got Tyrock, Black Legionnaire. 266. There. $267. So the price goes from 40 cents to 50 cents. So they add 8-page little short stories in there to justify it. $269. Got some of those classic heads around the outside cover there, fighting the Fatal Five. One of their big villains groups. Now this one, 270. I had this one. This is not my original copy, but I had this one when I was a little kid. So this was my first exposure to the Legion, and I must have drawn all these characters a bazillion times. 270, 272, and inside of here, now they normally would do that thing where they would have the bar down the side when they were doing an internal preview, but they, for some reason, I guess they hadn't thought of that yet, or because of the way this layout works, they just didn't want to do it that way. But we have a preview of the Dial H for Hero feature that's going to be in Adventure Comics about two kids who have these magical dials that when they dial HERO, they turn into a different superhero every time. And the superheroes that they turn into were ideas that readers could send in. Sometimes I hear people say that that's always the case for the Dial H for Hero concept, but it's really only in that early 80s period when it was running in Adventure Comics, and for a while when it was a backup in New Adventures of Superboy, that readers, it was based on readers' ideas. Other times it was just whatever the writer, came up with. But anyway, and Blok is going to join the he was a member of the Legion of Super Assassins, but he had gotten caught up with a bad crew, and so he's getting he gets invited to join the real Legion, giving them a brick, like almost literally. Blok is a brick. All right, 273. They use all those pages for one story. Brainiac 5 getting in trouble. Oops. That. Issue 276. This issue, there's an ad for this that ran in a lot of books the same month or whatever. I remember seeing it all over the place. So it was really cool when I eventually got this issue. $277. So we have the ad. Well, first of all, one thing, we have George Perez, my favorite artist, coming in and doing some covers on Legion. He never got to really do interiors that much, or at least not for years and years and years. But the storyline introduces Reflecto. And Reflecto, DC had done some stories where Superman travels to the future and interacts with the adult version of the Legion. And at one point he walks through a sort of hall of the dead, or honoring dead Legionnaires, and Reflecto is a member. But DC would, or Legion writers and whatnot, would gradually try to sometimes give a shout out to concepts that had been seen in those adult Legion stories, even though they were not going to just let their stories be limited by what had been seen in those adult Legion stories. And because in the adult Legion stories, the adult Legion just had the same costumes as the young Legion, whereas of course in the book they're all getting new costumes and things like that. So so now we're getting that Reflecto, and we're finding out who Reflecto is. 280. This one has a lot of personal memory because, again, it's a George Perez cover, and I must have put tracing paper over this and used this figure to draw other superheroes, like put their, the details a little different a million times. I've had to press this to get that outline where I'd gone over it so many times. And it's also got a really cool pinup inside, because now they've gone up to 60 cents, and so they added a couple more pages, but they didn't have time to write 2 more pages of story, so they put pinups in. 281, continuing that story of they go back to the 20th century, because Reflecto turned out to be Superboy, but he says he's not Superboy, he says he's Ultra Boy. So it's all very confusing. 281, and it all gets resolved. 284, we've got artist Pat Broderick coming on and doing some Legion. Pat Broderick, known for the Captain Atom series, among other things. 285, yeah, Broderick there. 288. 289. So this was kind of funny. So you had Saturn Girl, the telepath, and Lightning Lad, who shoots lightning, are dating, but they're having some issues. Timberwolf, the feral character, sort of makes a little bit of a move on Saturn Girl in here, and all of which is a play on the Cyclops, Phoenix, Wolverine storyline, triangle over at Marvel. It lines up perfectly. So, but anyway, 289. By 292, we are in the Great Darkness Saga. Now, the Great Darkness Saga, long story short, is the Legion going up against Darkseid of the New Gods. He being so powerful, of course, he could still be around at this point, and it is considered to be one of the most classic Legion stories. Paul Levitt's writing that. issue. So that's issue 292. We're kind of in the middle of it. Darkseid is employing clones of people like Orion and a Guardian of the Galaxy and things like that. Continuing the Great Darkness saga. We've got, I mean, things got so bad they had to call in Superboy to help out. 293. By 296, we're out of that. We've got some. We've got Sunboy fails to stop some terrorists, and Cosmic Boy's family was on a spacecraft that the terrorists blew up, and Cosmic Boy is not too happy about it, and he goes on a rampage to find the terrorists and, you know, bring them in and possibly kill them until somebody talks him down and all that good stuff. Then we get 299. We've got the old Invisible Kid turns out to not be as dead as they thought he was. And he is interacting with the new Invisible Kid, Jacques Foccart, and Wildfire is kind of tied up in the middle of that. Then we have the issue 300, celebrating the fact that we got to 300. Now, you know, some people say that the 300th issue of Legion. Well, of course, it used to be Superboy. It just, the numbering carried over, but it is what it is. This cover was a kind of a joint effort by lots of different artists. We've got a George Perez, Colossal Boy. We've got a Bob Oxner, Supergirl. We've got a Kurt Schaffenberger, Superboy. I believe. And I don't know if there's a chart anywhere. I'm doing this from memory. Like a Gil Kane, Mon-El, Kurt Swan on Ultra Boy, Keith Giffen on Prody, George Tuska on Timberwolf. So a little hodgepodge of artists came in and did this. This book, the reason it's a red dot book also, is there's a crowd scene of aliens, you know, various, you know, just made up aliens, and deep in the back of one of them is Garfield, the cat character from the comic strips. And so this is that's technically the first appearance of Garfield in comics, and so people tend to give this book credit for that. And the series continues, issue 301. Kind of basic cover there, like a trading cards. 301, 304. We get a little story with the Legion Academy. So we have, whereas the substitute heroes are the heroes that just didn't make it, sometimes they would get pushed over to the Legion Academy, or they would just be, you know, people who were young and wanting to develop their powers and maybe one day join the Legion, and they would join the Legion. They would go to the Legion Academy. We had Power Boy. We had Laurel Kent, who was a descendant of Superman, and she was, it's the only power she got out of it was invulnerability. She's using a Legion flight ring to fly. Cosmic Boy's younger brother. Bouncing Boy is a teacher at the academy. Uh, 305. So throughout this, the last few issues, Shrinking Violet has becoming and Colossal Boy have becoming romantically attached, and what the heroes figure out is that that's not really Shrinking Violet. That is a Durlan, the shape-shifting Durlan, kind of like the Scrolls at Marvel, who has taken her place. So, 308, Prophecy of Doom. 309 here, and 313. So at this point, this would be the last issue of this version of Legion of Superheroes. The overall, you would go on to have the next Legion of Superheroes book, which is what they called a Baxter book, special paper, that was only being sold in comic book shops. And then this series would go on, the numbering would go on to Tales of the Legion, and that would run for a year, and then Tales of the Legion would start reprinting the stuff from the other Legion of Superheroes book for, I don't know how, I can't remember how long it did that, because I only picked up the ones that I needed. So that's what happens there. So then we have a couple of annuals. We have Legion of Superheroes Annual 1, so which is the first appearance of the second Invisible Kid. There, that was another early book of mine. And issue 3 of Legion of Superheroes Annual. And there you go. That is the end of this box. Okay, so that was box 98. Next time we will do box 99. We will continue on through the various incarnations of the Legion of Superheroes and their minis and one-shots and things like that, and eventually make our way into a couple of other little L-oriented things. So thanks so much for being here. Please like and comment and subscribe. It does the channel so much help, and I hope you have a great day.